This is the Plastic Principle.
All right, everyone. Welcome to my podcast, The Plastic Principle. And I have an incredible guest today. I'm so happy to have him, Dr. Calvert, an amazing plastic surgeon. We're so honored to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on, Dr. Diaz. This is great.
I love this because I feel like not only are we colleagues, but I really consider you a friend.
Absolutely. We've known each other for a long time.
Long time. And I love that we park next to each other. And sometimes I see you in the morning as we come up the elevator.
Well, you know, it's we're busy. We're busy here. So that's the deal.
And we have offices in the same building. So your office is here too. So
Correct.
This was convenient, I hope.
I actually took the elevator up, realizing I could have probably walked up the stairs.
Right. I always say, I'm going to walk up the stairs today. And I'm like, no, I'm a little tired. Maybe tomorrow.
I just was like busy, finishing the day. Just finished, facelift and a rhinoplasty and all that.
I'm so happy you said that because this is a great segue into some of the things I want to talk about. But before I do, I just want everyone to understand just why it's such an honor to have you here, because you are such a phenomenal surgeon, such an accomplished surgeon. And I think it's important for people to, the audience to know who the guests are, what their background is. So Dr. Calvert is a phenomenal surgeon, incredible reputation for rhinoplasty, really is what, you've made a name for yourself. But I want to add that it's interesting. It's a small community. We see each other's patients sometimes, and occasionally I'll have a patient who comes in. She's, maybe accompanying a friend, and it will come up that, I've had surgery. With Dr. Calvert, and they might say, my nose, and I look. It's amazing results. Your results are amazing.
Well, thanks.
But I've seen your facelift results, amazing. I've seen breast augmentation results, amazing. Like, I think you're one of the surgeons, and there are some that can actually do a wide variety of procedures incredibly well.
I was sort of trained to be a plastic surgeon, and I never thought that I would live in a world where people expect you to do one thing.
Right.
It's very strange to me.
Yes.
Now, it's not strange to anybody else. I know that the surgeons who are like, I only do facelifts, I only do rhinoplasty, I only do breasts. And to me, I think that they've set themselves up to kind of almost Peter Principle themselves out of the upper echelons of those specialties, specifically because how can you learn anything being so repetitive? How can you improve your results? Like, I learn to do things in rhinoplasty from doing facelifts.
Right.
I learn to adjust things in soft tissue management of the face from doing breast surgery. So right. I love doing those, and maybe I don't do everything. I do those three things a lot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, one of my wife's friends will get me to do a tummy tuck every year or two.
And I'm sure you do those great too.
And they do fine.
Right,
I stay up on it.
Yeah.
And I do. When I don't do something and I go to a big meeting, I go check out stuff I haven't been doing. I went to a butt implant lecture recently. And I'm not going to do butt implants.
Are you going to start doing them?
No, okay. I'm not. But I just went to see what's new with it. And by the way, there's a lot new constantly in plastic surgery.
Yeah.
And if you're not somebody like us who's pushing the educational envelope all the time, you're going to get left behind. And I think that's why things like this podcast, things like our websites, presenting at the LA Society, which we're both members of, really makes a difference.
Yeah, and you're bringing up some great things that I can't wait to talk to you about, because I think that there's this misconception, like you said. I have so many patients who, when I meet them, whether it's socially or even here, they'll say, well, what do you specialize in? What do you specialize in? I'm like, I specialize in plastic surgery. I feel the same way you do. The reason we went into this field, and this is something that I actually address in this podcast, because I'm trying to educate people about the field of plastic surgery and how incredible it is. And I've had some incredible guests as well before who've also addressed this. But the reason we go into this specialty is because we love this field. We love these procedures. And I think a lot of people don't understand how wide the field of plastic surgery is. So, there's reconstruction, and then there's the cosmetic, and everyone always just associates plastic surgery with cosmetics. But we're trained in so many different procedures. It would be a shame to not do a lot of the things. Like you said, you're doing facelifts, you're doing blepharoplasties, I'm sure, and rhinoplasties, breast augmentation. Imagine you have this tremendous skill set. Imagine just using it for one thing. It would be a waste of your talent.
I think it would just be I don't know. I guess I could see doing that, but at the same time, I love doing plastic surgery.
Right.
And I went into plastic surgery to help people.
Right.
So I do love the operations tremendously.
Right.
But the moment that I love the most is when a patient who is 2 years out said, "What you did for me was life-changing."
Right.
That is the power of aesthetic surgery, reconstructive surgery. All the things that we do are designed to help people feel more confident and comfortable in their own bodies. And whatever that is, whether it's, putting together, reconstructing a cleft nose, or putting together, a dog bite, or being, a master facelift surgeon, those things are all incredible, and they all have value. And I think the public is often misled into what our drive and our motives are. They think that we're, busy, drinking, mineral water, playing golf. And I think we're some of the hardest working surgeons there are.
Absolutely.
And especially in Beverly Hills. We were at the LA Society 2 months ago, and I looked around the room, and everyone there was so intensely listening to the lectures. So, just engaged to be better for their patients. They weren't engaged because somebody was bringing them fancy drinks or, feeding them fancy food. These plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills and in Los Angeles at large are engaged to be excellent because it's not for any other reason. We want to serve our patients well.
Yeah.
And I was really blown away by it. It was so noticeable to me.
I agree. I think that there's this community of plastic surgeons here. We know who we are, that really have a passion for this field. We really care about being the best. We really care about our patients. And I think it's important I want to give the audience a little bit of background on you. So you trained in the University of Pittsburgh, the plastic surgery program there.
Correct.
Which is widely considered one of the best programs in the country, if not the world.
It's beastly.
Yeah, it's an amazing program.
It was awesome when I was there. It continues to be awesome. I go back every year and lecture there.
Yeah.
I am always blown away by how much is going on at the University of Pittsburgh in every aspect of plastic surgery. But they constantly grow. They have new faculty all the time. It's nuts what they're able to do, but it's just the nature of Pittsburgh, which is very much a medical town. There are other major health systems there.
That's right.
And they serve a very large area in that region of the world, and it was great. I loved it there.
Yeah, and you carried on that academic, emphasis throughout your career because Jay Calvert served as the president of the Rhinoplasty Society. So that's a tremendous honor, something very prestigious. Not a lot of people get to lead that organization. You were an incredible leader of it. And you're currently serving as the president of the Los Angeles Society of Plastic Surgeons, which is the LASPS that you were referring to before, the LA Society.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So these are things that are priorities for you. And then you run the Aesthetic Fellowship in LA.
Yeah, I'm the director of the Aesthetic Fellowship, which encompasses there are about 8 surgeons that are in practice in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills who are actively engaged in training plastic surgeons who have finished their plastic surgery residency and are doing an additional year of training to learn how we run a practice, how we do these operations at this level,
right?
How to make money. This is like there's doing surgery,
right?
And then there's making a living doing surgery, which are two very different things, and both are not easy.
That's right.
It's true.
But you're dedicated to teaching. You're dedicated to academics. There's so many articles you've published, so many books chapters that you've contributed to, and things like that. So this is someone who not only loves the field but has contributed back to it. And I think there's a lot of us that share that same kind of values that we want to. We love our field, but we want to give back to it. And so I think, it's great for the audience to know that about someone like yourself and some of the other guests I've had on, And it's one of the things that I want to focus on in this podcast, talking about all the incredible surgeons that are in this community that we work with, and like what makes a great plastic surgeon. So this is a topic and a conversation I've had with others about like, what do you think makes a really good, what's the difference between a mediocre surgeon and a really good plastic surgeon? What do you think are some of the qualities?
It's a great question. I mean, I always talk about attention to detail. I think the plastic surgery, I always say it's like pizza. You know, if you get great pizza, it is so good. It is like, man, this pizza is amazing, and you love it, and it's worth every dollar you paid for it. And if you get like kind of average pizza, you're like, you know, it's still pretty good. You know, I like
still
pizza.
Better than
right?
no pizza.
It's still
right?
pizza. So like people get plastic surgery, and oftentimes they don't really know whether it's good, mediocre, top of the line, if they're driving a Bentley or a Toyota Camry. You know, Toyota Camry is a great car.
Yeah, still gets you from
amazing.
A to B.
Yeah, it's got a great sound system. It's got air conditioning. Great car. But you get in the Bentley, and all of a sudden you realize this is a different car.
Yeah.
So there's plastic surgery and there's plastic surgery, and I think the reason people come to Beverly Hills and to people like you and me is because they want the Bentley experience. They want that extra touch, and what they're looking at that makes it worth it. Results, and results.
Right.
And it's all about the results.
Right.
If you get great results,
right.
It's worth every dollar that they paid to come to these places, because the rents aren't cheap here.
Right.
The people aren't inexpensive. The people are experienced. My unit downstairs runs like a well-oiled racing car. It is just, everything is in its place. There's all the right instrumentation. The attention to detail is what allows the results to be consistent,
right, and
top of the line.
Right.
So you need somebody that's going to pay attention to what you want. If you're the patient, you need somebody that listens. You need somebody that really can say back to you, this is what I think you're looking for. This is how I'm going to do it. And you go, yes. And you saw, 10 other patients, and you're like, that's what he does. That's where I'm going. And then everything has to be right. All the pieces of the puzzle have to fit. And then, of course, you've got to love the artistry of your plastic surgeon.
Right.
So many plastic surgeons like so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the artistry of a facelift is as variable as the artists in a museum. Mm-hmm. There are people in Beverly Hills and in Santa Monica and in Los Angeles that do facelifts that, to me, just don't look nice. Mm-hmm. They have tons of patients lined up paying six figures for facelifts. Mm-hmm. And it's great because I don't do that. They do.
Right.
And their patients are happy and they love it. The people that come to me, for instance, are looking for a better version of themselves, a more natural look. They're looking for a nose that doesn't look done. Like, I'm the guy that's trying to get, Dr. Phil said at one time, he had me on his show. He says, we have today our expert, Dr. J. Calvert, who is known for his natural results. And that was how they picked me to come down and comment on the guy that's saying, like, I'm going to have a party for my 50th plastic surgery operation.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, you can only imagine how that went. Needless to say, I haven't been back to Dr. Phil's show, but it was great. I love Dr. Phil. He's great. Jay McGraw, great people. But the reality was that, that's kind of how people see my results. Yeah. And then, like, I do these incredible operations for people that they say, like, oh my God, I'm so happy. It looks great. I told my friend, and they said, I don't look any different. And then they show the before and the after. They're like, but look at this. Right. Look at me before. Look at the after. Like, it's night and day. It's so obvious how incredible the difference is for them. Right. But their friend is like, but you don't look like a different person. Right. I want things to be in different places. I want, I need,
Right. No one noticed that I had it.
Nobody
you
noticed.
Don't want that.
Right. So their friend, like this one gal is just like, I don't understand. She says, she said, I tried to refer my friend to you, and she said, you look so beautiful, but you don't look like you've had plastic surgery. You don't look different. She goes, I want to look extreme. I want to look different, like something happened. So there is that patient.
Yeah.
And so that patient is not my patient.
Right. They go somewhere else.
And this is why I always say there is no competition in plastic surgery. Your only competition in plastic surgery is you yesterday. That's it. Your only competition is what you did yesterday. You need to be better. And so these people that think they're competing with me, they're not. My patient's going to come to me because this is what they want. They are going to zone in on that guy because that's what he does. And same, your patients are going to come to you because they saw your patient. They love what you do. They looked at your Instagram or your TikTok, your website, whatever. And they're going to say, Diaz is my flavor. That's where I'm going. I want what he does. And then if you're nice and you got the staff and everything adds up, boom, they're booking surgery. It's the truth. And then if they come here and they talk to you and they say, boy, you know, I was kind of hoping I'd look like a cartoon character, then they're going to go somewhere else because you don't do cartoon characters. That's
right.
You know, so that's just kind of how I've seen it. And I've always argued with people on this. Oh, you know, that's my competition. You have no competition.
It's a great philosophy to have. It's a great approach. But I think what you touched on is really important to discuss, because you said attention to detail and then you included artistry. And I've been having this conversation, and I think you're right, because when I was asked this question before, I always said, you know, I think what makes a surgeon a great surgeon is caring. Like if you're in the operating room, and I know you're like this because I know you well, and I like to think I'm like this. I'm in the operating room. I don't leave until I'm 100% happy with the result. You know,
totally.
I sit there, and if I have to, and my staff sometimes, they, you know, the nurses, they'll be like, Dr. Diaz, it's good enough. And I'm like, no, let me take this down again, because that's how we are, right? So there's that care and that attention to detail. But then it's also the artistry. And I kind of, you know, didn't emphasize that as much before, but you're right, because the attention to detail probably comes from the artistry, looking at something that for us is not good enough, or maybe for someone else. And we know surgeons like that who look at something that's like, it's good enough, but for us it's not. And that's maybe a talent. Maybe that's something that you're born with or you're not born with. But I know personally, when I was growing up, I was always drawn to art, and I was artistically inclined, and I care about the aesthetics of things. And I think that's another quality a lot of us share, that we care about the aesthetics of things, and it's important to us.
100%. I mean, it's all about, you know, I sometimes will include a story in my lectures about being ejected from a meeting.
I want to hear the story.
So I wasn't literally bounced out of the meeting, but they could, if they could have, they would have. And I said something to the effect of like, you know, this meeting is called something like, you know, beautiful results, blah, blah, blah. And I just said, you know, what I'm seeing here is missing the mark very extremely. And I said, I see a lot of science projects here. I see a lot of things that look very odd.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, our patients are trusting us.
Yeah.
You know, and I might have said something like, I don't know who basically decided that all the guys in high school who couldn't get girls and went to med school should be in charge of aesthetics. You know, like I said, maybe they just didn't know what good looking is. I kind of said some things that were sort of,
yeah, I'm surprised you weren't kicked out.
I was, but you know, it was sort of crass, and it was not nice.
Yeah.
But I was so put off by the results. They were so weird and so ugly. And I just was like, you know, we got to do better than this.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm going to show my results. Maybe you guys are going to sit here and, you know, throw, you know, tomatoes at me. But like, we got to do better.
Yeah.
Like we got to do better. We got to hide incisions. We got to
Right.
think it through. You got to plan better, diagnose better, understand the soft tissue relationships. Like if you're not doing those things as a plastic surgeon, then what are you doing? Are you milling out operations that you learned as a resident, trying to knock out some cases to get some money or something? Like, no, your job is to be better than you were the day before, and to keep learning. I mean, I learn intraoperatively while I'm doing stuff with the nose or with the face. Like I'm like, I did a redo face today. It was a facelift I did on a really good friend of mine 15 years ago. And it's time for the update. You know, it's been 15 years. Yeah. And so I'm in there and I'm like, well, I did this last time, and, you know, I think I can make this happen. And I was like, you know, the way that I entered that, you know, the way I did my SMAS flap, then I used to do a high SMAS. I'm like, I think I can do the deep plane. And I was like, let's explore that, you know, let's be safe about it. But, you know, sure enough, into the deep plane, big deep plane flap, you know, amazing. And the result is spectacular. I'm so happy for him because because I had done it before, now I have a massive advantage in making this a great result. And so it just was, but it's like an intraoperative exploration and learning.
Yeah.
And if you're that guy, you can do it.
I think that's another quality I think that makes a great surgeon is that that desire to be better, always improving. And I know that's how you are. I mean, that's obvious, and because of the leadership you've had in these positions and organizations, you're always caring to not only improve yourself, but others too. And I think that's the thing we share. And that's another reason why you mentioned Beverly Hills. It's kind of crazy, like how many plastic surgeons there are here in this city, in this building alone.
There's a reason.
But it does make us better because it is competition in a way. But I love your approach of saying we really are not each other's competition. That's a great way to think about it. But in a way, what I would say is we inspire each other. Like I'll be very honest. I admire your work and how great of a surgeon you are. I've seen your results are great. And then I'm like, I got to keep up with Jay. Like I can't slack off. I got to be as good as he is. And I think a lot of us maybe feel that way in this community. We're seeing each other's work. We're seeing what each other are doing. And we're like, hey, I got to step up to the plate. Whereas maybe in a smaller market, you don't feel that pressure, or maybe you don't see as much. And so you kind of maybe can get a little more complacent. It's possible.
For sure.
But in a city like this, you can't be. You have to be always on your A game.
Yeah. That's another thing I got in trouble with in a meeting in Italy. Because, like there's all this talk about...
As you're discovering, he's a little bit of a troublemaker too.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
I think I'm just, I'm a little spectrumy that way. It's just, what can I do?
No.
But I said that because in a meeting in Italy, they were talking all about preservation rhinoplasty. There's this whole technique about preservation rhinoplasty. Oh, we're doing preservation. There's been a revolution in rhinoplasty. And, maybe. I mean, how can you have a revolution when the operation was done in 1857 and it's just been like dusted off and updated? It's not really a revolution. It's like, hey, we're going to try this technique. And so that's all preservation is. A lot of these guys are zealots and they're religious about it, and they feel like if you don't do it their way, you're not doing it right. And I just looked at the results of these guys were all presenting their preservation rhinoplasties, and the results weren't awesome to me. They were fine. Once again, it's pizza, right? They got a result, right? The nose is different. It's better.
Right.
And they did a good job. And that's why I didn't like, one of my friends in this meeting in Miami recently said like, oh, why are you always bashing on preservation rhinoplasty? I said, I don't bash on it. I just don't think it's adequate for me. It's fine for you. Like it's from the old Caddyshack, we got a pool and a pond. Pond would be good for you. So I think they sort of felt that way about it because I was like, it's fine. It's great for you. I'm never going to do it. But good, you can do it. Yeah. And I said something and my friend from Germany went bananas on me, just screaming in this lecture hall, like yelling at me like, like, what is wrong with you? How can you not see this? And I just said, look, in my zip code, if I did that, I'm going to be out of a job. And that's the truth. I can't leave noses wider. I can't leave noses with residual humps. I can't do all these things. And by the way, I got the revision of the preservation rhinoplasty paper that's brewing in my office right now. And it's not that it's a bad thing. The results, nothing I've seen has been like, an outright total disaster except for 3 of these cases, which clearly the guy didn't know what he was doing. But it's like, it's fine, but the results they're not my standard. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to do a technique because,
it's the newest thing.
You said it's better for you. Like, and they say these things that have absolutely no data behind it. Reduced swelling, faster healing times. Yeah. I was like, how can you have a faster healing time when you've totally dislodged the whole nose and septum from the face, right? Leaving it only attached by skin, right? And now you're telling me that's a more, reasonable technique. I'm like, I don't think so. Like, it's a very aggressive technique, but it's all marketed up and painted specially with good paint, and it looks very nice. And they say preservation rhinoplasty. It sounds so gentle. It sounds, we're going to preserve it. What we're going to do is we're going to saw your nose off under the skin, put it where we want it, and stick it together with some sutures. Right, right. That's what it is. Yeah. And so the public has this like perception that, oh, he does preservation rhinoplasty. It's gentler. It's not anything. It's a different technique. It's fine. If you do it that way and you get great results, good on you. I can't get those results with it because my patients are demanding something different. And so that's where these technique-driven marketing campaigns really get under my skin, as you can tell.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, can you all tell that? I
Well,
don't
you're
know.
clearly passionate about it, but it is because rhinoplasty is something that you have become an expert at. You were the president of the Rhinoplasty Society. So this is something near and dear to your heart. But I'm glad you brought up the preservation rhinoplasty because I was going to ask you, it is a big trend, right? And everyone's talking about it. And, like as we've discovered, a lot of times these procedures come out. The name sounds great. It sounds like a fantastic thing.
Totally.
But I think you and I are both the kinds of guys that we sit down and we look at it and we're like, wait, is this really better or not? Because it could be great, but let's see long term. What are the results? Can we get consistent results with this? And my opinion, I think we share the same one, is that I think the jury is still out. I'm not an expert at rhinoplasty like you are, but I think that I agree with you. Some of the results I've seen have left me a little bit underwhelmed. That's
probably the right term.
Right.
It's underwhelming. They're fine.
Right.
The top guys who do preservation rhinoplasty, presented their best results in Miami, and I was just like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Like on easy noses too, like things that could have been really spectacular.
You could have gotten a home run on, right? Right.
Gentle hint of a curve, nice tip, not too sculpt, But and then they present the stuff, and it's like, it's better.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe for the audience, because I'm sure maybe someone's tuning in because they see your name and they're like, oh my God, I want to learn about rhinoplasty. Maybe we can give them a little
They
quick.
shouldn't listen to this because I'm kind of on a tear here. Sorry about that. I don't mean to bag on it.
You brought the energy.
Yeah,
so
it's like.
But maybe we can give them a little quick, brief course on rhinoplasty, because the way I see it, there's like 3 approaches. Open, which is a traditional way we all kind of learn how to do it. The closed approach, which is kind of an old-fashioned way, but a tried and true way too. And then now this preservation is a relatively new a way to do rhinoplasty. Maybe can you just comment on what you think the critical differences are between the 3 and why you prefer the open?
Well, I'm old enough that I started with closed. So open was becoming the trend when I was in medical school. So I saw a great number of closed rhinoplasties, which means that you don't cut the columella.
Right.
So the open approach or the external approach, you cut the columella skin,
which is this part of
right here, the skin between the 2 nostrils,
right.
And you peel the skin off of the cartilaginous structures and the bones, and then you work on the bones and the cartilage, and you put the skin back down and you close it all up. Closed, you do the incisions all on the inside. There's a guy around here who will remain nameless who calls it scarless rhinoplasty, which I think is also complete BS because there are scars in the nose that can cause problems and nostril retractions and things. So I don't like that gaslighting of the public with terms like that. It sounds like, I'll get a rhinoplasty with a magic wand. No, we don't have a magic wand. It's a scalpel. As my tech calls it, the permanent skin marker. So then there's the preservation approach, which can be done open or closed. Traditionally, the concept was that it was done closed so that you could make the incisions inside, and then you instead of working on the bones to take a hump down or something, you literally cut all the way around the bones. You totally disarticulate the nose from the face.
You're kind of removing the structures internally to drop it.
And then you cut a piece of the septum, which is the main post that holds up the house of the nose, and drop the whole thing down.
Right. And the idea was to preserve the ligaments around.
You want to keep the whole bridge looking the way that it is. But a lot of times the bridge needs work. So then they wind up doing whatever. If you love it, I congratulations. I'm happy that it works for you. As long as you love your results and your patients love the results, then don't even listen to me. It doesn't even matter. But if you are getting results that you're like, why are these results turning out the way they are? Well, then something's not right. Because you want, I'm happy when I'm done with the rhinoplasty. I'm like, yes, I gave it what I could get out of this, and it's what the patient wanted. Otherwise, I'm still operating. I mean, really. Yeah. I mean, I don't stop until I've got it the way the patient asked me to do it.
Like I said, I think we're the kind of guys we sit there and we're like, it's not good enough. I have to tweak this. Let me tweak that. We don't leave until we're super happy with it. Yeah.
So those are the 3 ways. And, what I'm teaching the residents is you should learn everything. And because there's a case every once in a while, I'm like, this one's perfect for preservation.
Right.
It's too narrow. They wanted it wider. They want this. I'm like,
Right.
this is the one. This is the perfect preservation case.
Yeah.
And then I do it, and it's fine. And I can do it because I'm a skilled rhinoplasty
Right.
surgeon, not because I have a magic wand, not
Right.
because the technique is what drove the operation. What drove the operation is the patient's desired result.
Right.
What the patient wants.
That's right.
That's what drives my technique.
Yeah. And that's what's great about being a plastic surgeon who loves this field, is that because you have this skill set, because you have so much experience, you can go from any one of these approaches, and you can, customize it for each patient. And you can do the open, you can do the closed, you can do the preservation if you want, but it's about selecting the right procedure for the right patient for the right result.
Are you doing preservation?
I'm not. Yeah, because same reason. I've been underwhelmed by the results.
Yeah.
And I'm very cautious with surgery. I don't like trying something new until I'm 100% sure that it's going to work for me and that I can skillfully do it. So, I've chosen not to do it yet.
Yeah, I mean, there will be a case where you'll be like, oh, maybe this is the one.
Yeah.
And it'll come up, and then you'll be like, all right, because it's not hard to do.
Yeah.
But there are tricks too, and there are like all these problems,
right,
which I've kind of already seen that they like every meeting there's like a new named fix for the problems of preservation. Like this last one, they talked a lot about the ballerina procedure. Oh, I had to do the ballerina procedure on this. I was like, why would you need the ballerina procedure if you don't just cut the bones and to me, don't get me started. I think I'm already started. But the reality is that it's there, it's out there. You're going to hear about it. People market it like it's the end all be all. Just go with who has the best looking results.
Yeah.
As long as they show, and that's why I show video results, because I like to put patients on video and sit there with them and be like, all right, here's what it looks like at 12 weeks. Here's what it looks like at 3 months. Here's an 18-year result.
Yeah.
Because then patients can see like, oh, that's what it's going to look like.
Yeah, in real life. Yeah.
Yeah.
How we see results. Which you brought up a great point that I'd like to address as well, is about kind of social media and the marketing. We've been using this term market, but I think we touched on like how these trends sometimes influence patients. And marketing and social media is very powerful. We all accept that it's incredible. So much patients now have so much more information. But in some ways, it can be also detrimental to patients because it's so much information. Sometimes it's bad information. And to your point, all this, if someone's a very deft marketer, they can make a procedure look like it's the best thing ever. Or if they use the right terms, they can appeal to vulnerabilities, right? So people are always afraid of scars. So scarless sounds amazing, right? But maybe it's not the right procedure. I think also one of the things I've been seeing with patients is, and this goes to your example of the facelift, that they want to see a noticeable result. I was having this conversation where I'm starting to see this trend with patients where like, because all of us surgeons, when we're posting results, we're posting our good results, right? No one's going to post a result that they don't think is great.
Yeah, you're going to show stuff that is, like you like it.
Yeah, it's a result that you like, that is a good result. So the bar is being raised every single day. And I'm getting patients who are, and then the other problem is influencers who are posting these pictures of themselves that are probably photoshopped,
big time,
face-tuned. And I know you see it, where we see patients who come in and they don't look anything like the pictures on their social media. And there's been a lot of this in the public where people are realizing like, some of the ideals are being unrealistic. But I think it's making it a little bit harder too, because patients want to come in and they're like, unless my result looks like this, I'm not going to be happy. Or like you said, I got a facelift, but no one's noticing I got a facelift, so it's not a good result. But it's the opposite. I always say a good plastic surgery is plastic surgery you don't notice. That's good plastic surgery.
You and I feel that way, but others don't. That's the thing. Steve Hoffman told me a story. And Steve was a giant in Los Angeles and Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Plastic surgery, and he did this newscaster from Washington D.C. did her facelift, beautiful result. He was thrilled with it. She said she went home and she's on the news. Okay, so she's on TV. And no one noticed. Nobody said anything. They just said she looked beautiful. You look great. Your trip to California must have been restful. She's like, I had a facelift. You don't notice anything? They're like, no, you look beautiful. You look amazing. She came back and made him pull her so that she looked tight and weird so that she would have a noticeable change to her face.
Wow.
And Steve was just like, okay, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, nuts.
Yeah.
And he just said, it's like, you just can't, it's about taste.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell my patients, make sure you look at my websites, the befores and afters, and you like them, because that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
It's going to be in that vein of that level of, and there are some that are more extreme than others. And they could, and I say it's always helpful if you show me one of my patients that I did and say, I really like this one.
Right.
Even more powerful to say, and you did this one too, and I don't like this, so that I know what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. Because what you don't like,
even though your feelings may be a little hurt for a moment.
I check my ego at the door. If you have an ego and do plastic surgery,
you'll get humbled really quickly.
You cannot have an ego. You need to check your ego at the door.
Yeah.
And be there for your patients and let them say their piece, because that's how you learn what you can do for them and be the best you can be for them. You have to check your ego at the door. I don't know how you can be, arrogant and egotistical and take care of people with the most personal, their appearance, the way that their face works, the way that their nose works, their breasts. It's an intimate, this is a big deal, so you need to be humble and grateful and appreciative.
The best surgeons I've ever known, who were my mentors and the people that I aspire to be, always used to say, the more you learn, the more you realize how little you do know, and how much more you do need to learn. And that humility of approaching these procedures with the respect and the reverence that it deserves is critical. And I always remember that every time I go in the operating room, I'm always like, I have to be careful. Every procedure is almost like the first, approaching with the same amount of concern and care that I did when I first started, and hubris is the downfall of so many people.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%.
And I know that you have that as well, that approach to surgery. Now, you also have a podcast.
I do.
About plastic surgery.
Been doing it a long time.
Yeah, let's talk. I know you were kind of an early adopter, and I think it's, again, you like to educate, you like to inform. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your podcast, what kind of things you talk about?
Well, I have a co-host, Dr. Ravello, who is
Millicent Ravello.
Yeah, Millicent Ravello. She is a all-star body contouring expert, and we just do a back and forth about different plastic surgery procedures, topics. And it's been great. It's called the Beverly Hills Plastic Surgery Podcast. It's on Spotify and YouTube. People watch our podcast, actually.
I love watching podcasts.
Yeah. It's funny that people were like, oh, I watched your recent episode. I was like, you watch it? Because I listen in the car.
Right.
So I have it on Spotify. But, the podcast has been great. People get a lot of information, and we've done 300 episodes, so
that's amazing.
Hopefully we'll do 300 more.
Yeah, that's great. No, and I've listened to a few, and they're great. And you guys have a great, chemistry and great relationship and conversations and stuff. So it's really
great. It's funny. Yeah, we have a good back and forth. It works.
And then obviously, I think the audience would be great for them to know your website, so they can look at pictures of your results, which, like I said, are amazing.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's just drcalvert, drcalvert.com, and on Instagram it's Dr. J Calvert. Same with TikTok. I think it's the same. But yeah, I got stuff all over the place. I mean, if you need a revision rhinoplasty, then it's sort of it all winds up in my office at some point.
And this man is a very well-rounded guy, because he also has another podcast about hockey.
Well, that's how I got in podcasting.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, this was something that, it's a long story, but basically when the Maloof brothers were making their team, they wanted to get the Vegas Golden Knights. I told them that the guy they hired to write their pitch was no good, and that they had to use my pitch. And they were like, are you kidding? I was like, no, your pitch is terrible. They had a pitch that was about how many jobs they were going to make and luxury suites and blah, blah. It was all about how the business of the team would work. I was like, that's not how you get an NHL team. I said, you can go in and you tell Mr. Bettman, the commissioner of the NHL, Mr. Bettman, we would like a team in Las Vegas so that we can bring the Stanley Cup to Las Vegas. And I go, and that's it. That's your pitch. And I said, and then I'm going to tell you the 5 things that you need to understand about hockey and how you're going to do it so that you can show him the plan. But if you don't lead with "we want the Stanley Cup," they got nothing for you, and they'll give the team to Seattle or New Orleans or Atlanta or all these other places that were vying for the team.
Right. Yeah.
They walked in, Mr. Bettman, we want to have a team in Las Vegas because we want to win the Stanley Cup. Now we're talking. Right. And Joe called me from the room. He's like, "We got the team." I said, "I told you."
That's
I said,
amazing.
"That's all the people in the NHL care about." Because they had owned a basketball team, and it was just they just didn't know hockey. They were really like, I mean, literally at the first game, I was sitting there explaining the penalties and stuff to them, and they were just like, "Tell me about this penalty." I was like, "All right, this is how this works."
Wow.
Yeah, I felt like I was like on Slapshot or something with them. It was very funny. But that's what. And then they said, "You got to do something with your hockey knowledge." So I started a podcast where I would just talk into my phone on the ride between Beverly Hills and Newport Beach because I lived there, and I put it up as a podcast.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
And then Podcast One called me and said, "We need a hockey guy," and then they brought me onto the network.
That's great.
And so that's how Dr. Hockey got started.
I'm happy you said that, because sometimes I wonder, how do you get all this stuff done? And this is like a question sometimes I like to ask. Like, I was like, how did he start this and then that other podcast, and then he's doing this, and that's how. I
just was driving like, all right, so this is what's going on this week, and I would just kind of do like a roundup. It was just me, And then I got the deal with Norm Pattis, R.I.P. and Podcast One. And I called Kevin Connolly, who's a big actor, and I said, and he loves the Islanders and he loves hockey. And I made my friend Faye Resnick call him and say, "Can you see if Kevin will be my first guest?" And then she goes, "I am not doing that." She's like, "No way, I am not doing that." I was like, "Faye, you owe me one." I said, "And Kevin loves hockey. I bet he'll say yes." She goes, "Fine." I finally wore her down, and she called him.
Kevin Connolly of Entourage.
Yeah, from the Entourage, right?
Yeah.
So then she calls me back. She goes, "Well, this is interesting. He doesn't want to be your first guest." I was like, "Well, okay. Why is it interesting?" She goes, "He wants to be on the podcast and host it with you because he wants to learn about podcasting." And so Kevin signed up, and we did a bunch of episodes first. And
I didn't know that.
Then he got tapped to direct a movie, and that's when I brought Jason in. And then Kevin couldn't get back because then his directing kind of took over.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, he wound up opening a podcast network himself that we wound up doing in his studio, like over on Robertson. It's like such a small world out here, as you know.
Yeah.
And Kevin's been great, and the podcast has been great, and Jason Berkeley, my co-host for that, is amazing. So and we just kind of knock it out when you get, just like you're doing this.
Yeah. Well, I think like I do like to educate. I do like to share information. I'm passionate about this field like you are, and I want patients to have great knowledge and information. I think like you were saying, there's just, a lot of times patients are misled or misinformed, and it's hard to get great information out there. And, that's why I think what you're doing is fantastic, why I wanted you on the show. I'm so happy that you're here about this.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. It was, it's great talking about this. And, I think, you're doing a good thing to do it. It'll help your patients a lot. And, but it helps. I mean, we've got a lot of people that listen to our podcast and say, I just had my surgery in Houston with so-and-so, and your podcast was so helpful for every aspect of the care.
Right.
Because not everybody can come to Beverly Hills,
right.
and not everybody wants to pay these prices, and not everybody can fly. And so when they're doing stuff in their neighborhood, it's great to have this information, especially coming out of like this epicenter of plastic surgery in the United States. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Jay, I think anyone listening to this sees why you're such a great guy, why I consider you such a great friend. You're like so interesting. I learned couple of things about you I never even knew all these years later. But again, I congratulate you on all the stuff you're doing. And again, so thankful that you were here as a guest today.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, John.
All right.
This is the Plastic Principle.